So why do you think the government is holding back the SGR contract from Kenyan citizens? Who are the taxpayers who are paying for it? Or who should pay?
Okay, hold on a minute, Wanjigi. Before you give us the reason why the Kenyan government is holding back the contract, let's go back a little while. Let us know what is SGR and what has become of it from the day. Now, in the 2000s, the Kenya's colonial era meter gauge railway, which is actually a link to the Ugandan railway, or rather it connects us to the Uganda, became deteriorated from lack of maintenance. By 2016, passenger trains were taking an entire day to travel from Nairobi to Mombasa compared to 12 hours during the early 1990s. Now, the freight transported from the port of Mombasa fell from 4.8 million tons per year in the 80s to 1.5 tons per year in 2012. Now, in 2014, the Rift Valley Railway Consortium, the operator of railways in Kenya and Uganda, reported a loss of about $1.5 million. At the same time, the Chinese government was funding railway construction in other African countries. Now, come 2011, Kenya signed a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, with the China Road and Bridge Corporation, the CRBC, to build a standard gauge railway between Mombasa and Nairobi. The $3.6 billion railway was the largest infrastructure project in Kenya since independence. We can see that, and we appreciate that. Now, the financing was finalized in May 2014. Now, let's hold on there kidogo. You want to know the financing? Yes, imekuwa finance. And one of the major reasons why the SGR was constructed in Kenya is because Kenya is part of the Northern Corridor, which is usually referred to as a busy and important transport route to the East Africa and the central part of this continent. Now, the transport network is connected to the port of Mombasa, which links to the Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, and other parts of the Central Africa, including the DRC. Now, the project cost of the first phase of the SGR from Mombasa to Nairobi was 90% financed by the Exim Bank of China. The remainder of the project cost was funded by the Kenyan government, allegedly. Now, the 3.23 billion financing from Exim was finalized in May 2014, as I mentioned earlier. Exim advanced the loan amount in two subsidized loans from $1.63, which is billions. One of the loans was a foreign aid loan provided on a concessional basis, very low interest, so to say, while the other was a below market rate, which is preferential export buyer's credit. Now, a condition imposed by the Kenyan government for the financing was 40% of the total project cost, or about 130 billion Kenyan shillings, will be spent on local supplies, including sand, cement, electric cables, galvanized sheets, and steel. This is the idea of maybe promoting the local market. Now, a condition on the other side by the Exim Bank for the loan was to have an operator acceptable to the bank for the initial phase of the operation, which led to the Kenyan government to reject all planned international tender and to contract the mother company of CRBC, with the China Railway and Bridge Corporations. Now, in January 2020, a Business Daily Africa reported that the second loan related to the Nairobi-Naivasha section of the Kenyan SGR, amounting to $1.482 billion, with a 5-year grace period, fell due in January 2021. You can go and check. It attracts an interest rate of approximately 3.34% per annum and will be due in 30 semi-annual installments beginning on 21st January 2021 until 21st July 2035. That is the financing of the SGR. Now, the operation of the railway, the Kenyan Railway, is basically operated by the KRC, which is a state-owned corporation in Kenya. It contracts all the operation and maintenance of the line to the AfriStar, which is the Africa Star Railway Operations Company, a subsidiary of the China Road and Bridges Corporation and the primary constructor of the line. Now, AfriStar was given the legal right to the first 10 years of operation of SGR, with an interim review set for the end of the 5th year of the contract. While many of the employees working the SGR are Kenyans, as of July 2018, Chinese workers still occupied most of the critical positions, including dispatchers and locomotive drivers. Now, the whole idea of it sparked controversy, of which it had to spark controversy, and after 1 year of operation, a full handover to Kenyans was said to take place. Now, the Kenyan Transport Ministry explained that a full handover would occur in 2027 according to the agreement. Later, an interim review was initiated to study the feasibility of the transferring critical positions to the Kenyan Railway Corporation, which successfully negotiated takeover, shifting towards an earlier date of May 2022 with the CRBC. Now, most of the operations were no longer under the CRBC. Now, Kenyans will gradually take over all positions on the SGR, completing the full takeover in 2022. During the transition period in 2021, the KRC had already taken over ticketing, security, and refueling departments. Now, come 2018, the railway handled 1.6 million passengers and 5 million tons of freight. But in 2019, the Kenyan government required all cargo being cleared in the port of Mombasa to be handled by the railway, which led to protests all over Mombasa now and cargo transporters. According to the contract between the Exim Bank and KRC, and also the KPA, which is the Kenya Ports Authority, KPA was supposed to provide 1 million tons of freight at the start of the operation. Now, this is where it gets interesting, so to say. One of the conspiracies surrounding the SGR is actually Bernard Mushera, who is a fraud risk management and consultant, filed a petition to the Kenyan Senate. Allegedly, Kenya spent a total of 1.184 trillion to develop the SGR, more than the 407 billion previously stated by the government. Now, on top of that, Bernard actually says that the loan were never deposited in Kenya, and he says that the government used, or rather spent, part of its revenue to build the project. Jimmy Wanjigi, who was part of the Uhuru Ruto regime and actually set this thing on course, had this to say.
Or who should pay for it?
Now, I think it is water under the bridge. As I said, the rule of law is supreme. The courts of this land, Court of Appeal, has categorically stated whatever was signed was illegal. The procurement was illegal. I think let's adhere to the rule of law.
The Uhuru Ruto regime oversighted the construction of SGR to its launch, but the question on its ability to settle the China loan remains unanswered, having facilitated transport for over 5 years now, with an outstanding estimated debt of over 737.5 billion on lent loan. The SGR question on its revenue generation sparks a different discourse, from the procurement to utilization of this multi-billion-dollar project, which is 1,000 kilometers short in comparison to Tanzania's 2,500 kilometers from Dar es Salaam to Kigoma. Vision 2030 remains a vision. I do politics the way it does me and you. See you on the next one. It has been me, Momo Collins. Please remember to hit like, comment and subscribe. Share to your friends. Let them learn about Kenya and Africa. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.